"Can you pretend to be my date?" she asked the single dad CEO, Millionaire, who fell in love for real. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain had turned New York City streets into shimmering mirrors, catching the glow of the cafe signs and the reflection of hurried umbrellas. Inside Blue Ember Cafe, the air smelled of roasted coffee beans and vanilla cream. Olivia Ray pressed her palms together, trying to steady the tremor in her hands. Her phone buzzed again. "Are you still coming?" the message from her ex read. "Everyone's waiting." Her stomach twisted. Tonight was his engagement party with her former best friend. She had told them she was fine, that she had moved on. She was lying. The truth was, she could not bear the thought of walking into that ballroom alone. Outside the window, a tall man stepped out of a black SUV, holding a small umbrella over a little boy's head. The child giggled as he splashed through a puddle, and the man laughed softly. His voice was calm, deep, protective. Something about him made the noise of the world fade for a moment. Olivia's friend's words echoed in her head. "You cannot let them see you broken. Walk in proud, even if you have to fake it." She took a breath, grabbed her coat, and hurried outside straight into the man's chest. Coffee spilled, her purse dropped, and sketch papers flew like startled birds. "Oh my goodness, I am so sorry," she stammered, kneeling to collect them. "It is all right," the man said, kneeling too. His eyes met hers, warm, brown, steady, and patient. "Are you okay?" Her heart stumbled. "I am fine. Just having one of those days." He smiled faintly. "I have a few of those myself." The little boy peeked from behind his father's leg. "You dropped your picture," he said, holding up her sketch of a city skyline. "Thank you," she said softly. Something about their quiet kindness unraveled her last thread of pride. She looked at the man again, desperate words escaping before she could stop them. "Listen, this is going to sound completely insane, but could you pretend to be my date tonight?" He blinked. "Pretend?" "Yes, just for one evening. I have this event. My ex will be there. I need to walk in with someone who looks like he belongs." The man hesitated, glancing down at his son, then back at her. Rain tapped gently on the umbrella between them. "What is your name?" he asked. "Olivia," she whispered. "I am Ethan," he said, his lips curving in a slow, amused smile. "And you are asking a complete stranger to save your night." Her cheeks flushed. "I know how it sounds. I am sorry. Just forget I—" He interrupted softly. "All right, I will do it, just for tonight." For a heartbeat, she could only stare. The city noise dulled around them, and in that moment, what began as a desperate favor would become the first spark of something neither of them could have planned, something real. That evening, Olivia stood in front of the Grand Hotel ballroom, her heart pounding like a drum beneath her borrowed dress. The marble floor reflected golden light from the chandeliers above, and the sound of violins floated through the air. She looked at her reflection in the glass door, whispering to herself, "You can do this. Just smile, hold your head high, and pretend you belong." Beside her, Ethan adjusted his cufflinks, calm and composed. He looked nothing like a stranger now. In his tailored black suit, with his son safely at home, he carried the quiet authority of a man who was used to every eye in the room turning toward him. When he saw Olivia's trembling hands, he said softly, "Take a deep breath. Remember, it is just one evening." "One evening," she repeated, forcing a smile. As the doors opened, dozens of faces turned. The chatter lowered into murmurs. Olivia's ex, Daniel, froze mid-sentence when he saw her walk in. Her arm looped through Ethan's. For a moment, the satisfaction of that small victory almost drowned out her fear. "Good evening," Daniel said finally, his voice too sweet. "You look surprised." "I did not expect to see you here," Olivia replied evenly. "This is my friend, Ethan." Ethan extended his hand with a polite smile. "Ethan Cole, it is a pleasure." Daniel's fiancée blinked. "Coltech?" she whispered, recognizing the name of one of the city's most powerful companies. The color drained from Daniel's face. Ethan gave a quiet nod. I am in technology. Yes. Olivia could almost hear the unspoken gasps around them. For the first time that night, she did not feel small. She felt seen. The evening unfolded like a slow dream. Waiters floated past with trays of champagne. Cameras flashed. Laughter swirled. Ethan guided her through each introduction, his hand resting lightly at her back, his voice steady and warm. Each time she stumbled, he was there, covering her with effortless grace. During dinner, Daniel tried to corner her again. So, how long have you two been seeing each other? He asked with a forced smile. Olivia froze, but Ethan did not miss a beat. Long enough for her to make me forget what loneliness feels like, he said smoothly. Daniel's expression cracked, and for the first time, Olivia saw the tiniest flicker of regret in his eyes. She lifted her glass, her confidence growing. When the band began to play, Ethan leaned close. Dance with me. It will make it more convincing. Her heart stuttered. I have not danced in years. Then let us make this your comeback. He offered his hand, and she took it. Under the chandeliers, they began to move hesitant at first, then finding a rhythm that felt almost natural. For a moment, the world faded. There was no contract, no pretending, only the warmth of his hand and the way his gaze softened when it met hers. As the song ended, applause filled the room. Olivia laughed nervously, but Ethan did not let go. You did great, he murmured. Later, outside on the terrace, the night air cooled her flushed cheeks. She turned to him. Thank you. I know this was crazy, but you saved me tonight. Ethan looked at her for a long moment before saying quietly, You do not owe me thanks. You reminded me what it feels like to help someone without expecting anything in return. His tone carried something she did not understand, yet a hint of sorrow, of distance. She noticed the silver band still on his ring finger, and for a brief second, the world seemed to still. He saw her eyes flicker to the ring and said, My wife passed away 3 years ago. I never took it off. I thought keeping it meant keeping her close. Olivia's throat tightened. I am sorry. I did not mean to. It is all right, he said gently. You did not ask. But maybe tonight was the first time I did not feel completely alone. They stood there in silence as the city lights shimmered below them. The rain had stopped. Somewhere inside, the music rose again, soft and distant. Olivia looked at him and said quietly, Maybe we both needed to pretend tonight. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe pretending is how some stories start. And though neither of them could say it out loud yet, something real had already begun. The next morning, Olivia woke up to the soft glow of sunlight cutting through her curtains. For a long moment she lay still, staring at the ceiling, wondering if last night had really happened. The music, the lights, the slow dance, the way Ethan had looked at her, it all felt too unreal, too magical to belong to her ordinary life. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message popped up. Thank you for last night. You handled yourself beautifully, Ethan. Olivia smiled faintly, rereading the words. Then, another message followed. There is something I need to ask. Can we meet today? The cafe at noon. By the time she reached Blue Ember Cafe, the morning rush had faded. Ethan was already there, seated at a corner table, looking over a stack of newspapers. He looked more tired today, more like a man burdened by something unseen. Good morning, she said, trying to sound casual. He looked up and smiled. Good morning, Olivia. Please, sit. The waitress poured coffee for both of them and walked away. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ethan exhaled slowly. So, something unexpected happened after last night. Olivia's stomach tightened. What do you mean? My company's public relations manager saw the photos from the event, he said. Now the media believes I have a new partner. There are headlines everywhere. Investors are asking questions. She blinked, her heart sinking. Oh, no, I never meant to. He raised a hand gently. It is not your fault, but we need to handle this carefully. I cannot have the story spiral out of control. That is why I want to propose something temporary. Her breath caught. Temporary? He nodded. We could make it official for a few weeks. Appear together at events. Give the media time to calm down. It would protect both of us. She stared at him, stunned. You mean actually pretend to be your girlfriend? Yes, he said, meeting her eyes. A contract relationship. I will take care of everything: clothes, transport, compensation. You will only need to play the part." The room seemed to tilt. The sensible part of her wanted to run, but another voice whispered that maybe this could buy her some peace, some stability. Rent was overdue. Her savings were gone. She looked at her coffee, then back at him. "All right," she said quietly. "But only for a few weeks." Ethan's lips curved in relief. "Agreed." He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a simple written agreement. Olivia traced the words with her finger. "You really came prepared." He smiled faintly. "It is a habit. I plan everything." When she signed, the pen trembled slightly in her hand. She told herself it was only business. But deep down, she felt something shift, a door, opening to a world she did not belong to. Later that afternoon, Ethan's car arrived outside her apartment. A driver opened the door for her, addressing her as Miss Ray, and she almost laughed at the absurdity of it. She climbed in, glancing at the city rushing past the window, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. When they reached his home, she understood the difference between their worlds. The coal estate stood at the edge of the Hudson River, framed by glass walls and trimmed gardens. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cedar and clean linen. Every surface gleamed. A small voice echoed from the hallway. "Dad!" A boy ran up and hugged Ethan's leg. It was Liam, with his wide eyes and messy hair. "Liam, this is Miss Olivia," Ethan said gently. "She will be visiting us for a while." "Are?" The boy looked up at her curiously. "Are you my dad's friend?" Olivia knelt, smiling. "Something like that." Liam grinned. "Do you like pancakes?" She laughed. "Who does not?" Ethan watched the exchange with quiet amusement. "You seem to have passed the first test." That evening, as Olivia unpacked her few belongings in the guest room, she looked out the window toward the river. The sun was setting in streaks of orange and pink, reflecting off the glass walls like fire. Somewhere in the house, she could hear Ethan and Liam laughing. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe but also nervous. She was stepping into a world of wealth, reputation, and secrets she did not yet understand. She whispered to herself, "You are only pretending. Do not forget that." But as the laughter echoed down the hall, she knew the hardest part would not be pretending at all. It would be keeping her heart from believing that any of it was real. The next few days moved in a blur of adjustments and quiet lessons. Olivia woke each morning in a room larger than her entire apartment, surrounded by silence so perfect it felt heavy. A housekeeper named Maria brought her breakfast on a silver tray, smiling warmly, but Olivia barely touched it. She still felt like an uninvited guest inside someone else's dream. Every afternoon, Ethan returned from work with that same calm focus, his tie loosened, his phone buzzing endlessly. Yet when he saw her helping Liam with his drawing, the tension in his shoulders seemed to fade. He would stand by the doorway for a moment before joining them, asking, "What are we working on today?" "An airplane," Liam would answer proudly. "She showed me how to make the clouds look real." Ethan smiled at Olivia. "You are good with him." "He does not open up to people easily. I think he just needed someone to listen," she said softly. Their routine settled naturally. In the mornings, Ethan's driver would take Olivia to fittings and charity briefings so she could learn how to behave in the world of high-profile events. In the evenings, they ate dinner together sometimes, all three of them. Sometimes just Ethan and Olivia after Liam went to bed. One night, Ethan invited her into his study to go over the upcoming charity gala schedule. The room smelled faintly of old books and cedar wood. A framed photo sat on the desk, a young woman with dark hair and kind eyes. "Your wife?" Olivia asked gently. He nodded. "Her name was Claire. She passed away in an accident 3 years ago. After that, everything became mechanical. Work. Numbers. Silence. Until Liam started drawing again, and I realized he missed hearing someone laugh in this house." She looked around the quiet room. "It is beautiful here, but it feels lonely." He met her gaze for a moment, then said softly, "It was. Until recently." The words lingered in the air. Olivia felt her pulse quicken. She turned back to the schedule, pretending to focus, though she could still feel the weight of his eyes on her. Later that week, The first public event arrived a foundation dinner downtown. Olivia wore a deep green gown that shimmered softly under the lights. Ethan met her at the bottom of the staircase, his expression unreadable for a second. "You look stunning," he said finally. "Thank you," she whispered. When they arrived at the event, cameras flashed instantly. Reporters called their names, and Ethan took her hand as they stepped onto the carpet. His grip was firm, reassuring. Inside, everything sparkled: crystal chandeliers, silver cutlery, champagne bubbling in tall glasses. Olivia moved carefully, remembering his quiet advice from the car ride. "If you get nervous, just look for me," he had said. "I will always be near." Throughout the evening, he kept that promise. Whenever she stumbled over a word or forgot a name, he covered smoothly, turning every awkward moment into charm. She found herself laughing genuinely, not out of politeness, but because she could not help it. When the night ended, they drove back in silence, city lights streaking across the car windows. Olivia glanced at Ethan's reflection in the glass. He looked tired but peaceful, his usual distance replaced by something gentler. As they reached the estate, he helped her out of the car and said quietly, "You did wonderfully tonight. You made everyone believe." She looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Including you?" For a moment, he did not answer. Then he smiled faintly. "Maybe me most of all." And as the door closed behind them, Olivia realized that somewhere along the line, their performance had begun to feel dangerously real. 2 weeks later, the charity gala that had filled Ethan's calendar for months finally arrived. It was the most public event of the season, and Olivia knew every camera in the city would be pointed at them. She stood in front of the mirror while Maria fastened the last clasp of her dress, a soft silver gown that shimmered like morning light. Her hands trembled slightly, but her reflection looked composed. The woman staring back at her no longer looked like the anxious stranger who had stumbled into a cafe in the rain. When she came downstairs, Ethan was waiting by the grand staircase in a black tuxedo. For a long second, he only looked at her. "You are breathtaking," he said quietly. She smiled nervously. "Let us hope I can remember how to breathe." Liam ran out from the living room, holding a small drawing. "For luck," he said, handing her a crayon picture of 3 stick figures under a bright Sunday. She knelt, touched by the simple gift. "Thank you, Liam. I will keep it close." At the gala, the lights were blinding, the air heavy with perfume and expectation. Ethan guided her through the crowd, his hand steady on her back. The music swelled as they stepped into the main hall where reporters waited. A journalist called out, "Mr. Cole, is this your new partner?" Ethan smiled without hesitation. "Yes, she is someone very special." The crowd buzzed. Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. They moved to their table, where Daniel and his fiancée were seated nearby. The encounter was inevitable. Daniel leaned forward, forcing a smile. "I must admit, Olivia, you have upgraded." Before she could respond, Ethan spoke calmly. "Success is not about upgrades. It is about knowing who brings peace to your life." Daniel looked away, embarrassed. The tension melted into applause as the host took the stage. When the music began again, Ethan stood and offered his hand. "Shall we?" Under the soft glow of chandeliers, they danced. Olivia felt the world narrow to the rhythm of his steps and the sound of his voice close to her ear. For those few minutes, she forgot the cameras, the contract, and every reason she had for keeping her heart guarded. When the song ended, Ethan leaned close and whispered, "You did not just make them believe, Olivia. You made me believe too." And in that moment, she knew their carefully built line between acting and feeling had vanished completely. The night after the gala, the mansion felt quieter than usual. Olivia stood on the balcony outside her room, watching the moonlight ripple across the river. The evening had been perfect, almost unreal. Yet, the memory of Ethan's words echoed in her mind. "You made me believe too." She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the steady beat beneath her fingers. It had been a simple sentence, but it carried weight, a promise she was afraid to interpret. When the clock struck midnight, she finally turned away from the view, whispering to herself, "Do not fall for something that is not real." The next morning, Ethan invited her to join him for breakfast in the garden. The sun was warm, the air filled with the scent of fresh bread and coffee. Liam was stacking toy cars on the table, grinning from ear to ear. "I heard you and Dad were famous last night," he said proudly. Ethan chuckled. You have been watching the news again, young man? Liam shrugged, laughing. Maria showed me. Everyone said you two looked like a real family. The words landed softly, but Olivia saw the flicker in Ethan's eyes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she reached for her glass of orange juice, pretending to focus on the sunlight. After breakfast, Ethan asked if she wanted to visit the foundation office with him. The staff had prepared a press recap from the gala, and he thought she should see the impact of her work. Inside the modern glass building, employees greeted Ethan with respect but also curiosity. Olivia felt their eyes on her, whispers following their steps. Ethan noticed and said quietly, "Ignore it. They will stop once they see who you really are." They entered the conference room. On the screen, photos from the gala appeared her smile, his hand on her back, the way they looked at each other. The images looked less like business and more like affection. One of the board members, a woman in her 50s, smiled politely. "Mr. Cole, your partnership seems to have inspired a lot of goodwill. The press calls you the comeback king and her, your lucky charm." Olivia blushed. Ethan thanked the team and ended the meeting quickly. On the drive back, silence filled the car. She glanced at him. "Does this make things harder for you?" He shook his head. "It makes things clearer. I have spent years letting my company define me. Now, for the first time, people see me as a person, not a machine. And maybe it is because of you." She looked out the window, her voice barely audible. "This was supposed to be pretend." "I know," he said softly. "But lately, I have forgotten where the act ends." That night, Ethan knocked on her door. "Come with me," he said. "There is something I want to show you." He led her up the spiral staircase to a quiet room on the top floor. It was an art studio, half-finished canvases lined against the wall. "This was Claire's," he said. "She painted whenever she could. After she died, I closed this room. But since you arrived, Liam asked me to open it again. He said the house feels alive now." Olivia ran her fingers along a half-finished painting, a sunrise over the river. "It is beautiful," she murmured. Ethan stood beside her. "You brought that light back, Olivia. You reminded me how to breathe again." Her heart pounded. She turned toward him, and for a moment, the air between them seemed to stop. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I do not want to pretend anymore," he said quietly. The confession hit her like a wave. Every wall she had built started to crumble. "Ethan," she whispered. But the words faded as his hand lingered at her cheek. Before either of them could speak again, Liam's voice echoed from the hallway. "Dad, Maria says bedtime." Ethan stepped back instantly, clearing his throat. "I should go." Olivia nodded, her pulse racing. "Good night, Ethan." He hesitated at the door. "Good night, Olivia." When the door closed, she sank into the chair near the easel. The house was silent, except for the ticking of the clock. Everything felt too fragile, too real. Later that night, she opened the folder where their contract was kept. The paper that once felt like protection now looked like a wall between them. Her eyes lingered on the expiration date, 2 weeks left. She whispered into the darkness. 2 weeks to stop pretending. Or 2 weeks to lose him forever. Outside, the wind carried the faint sound of the river. Inside, Olivia sat alone in the art studio, torn between what was written in ink and what was written in her heart. A few days later, the calm that had settled over the mansion began to crack. Olivia noticed Ethan spending longer hours on phone calls, his expression turning colder each time. The news channels started to whisper again rumors about the mystery woman beside the Coltech CEO. It began with one photo. Someone had captured them leaving the gala together, his hand resting lightly at her back. Then, another photo appeared, one of her at his home, playing with Liam in the garden. The headlines followed like a storm. Who is she? A stranger in the CEO's mansion, a gold digger or guardian angel? Olivia's stomach sank as she read the words on the tablet screen. Her name was trending. Her old employer called, warning her that people were digging into her past. By evening, a reporter was standing outside the estate gates. When Ethan came home that night, she met him in the foyer, her hands shaking. "They are saying awful things. They think I am taking advantage of you, of Liam. We have to do something." He took a steady breath. I will handle it. This kind of noise comes with my position. But they are not attacking you, Ethan. They are attacking me. I cannot live like this. He rubbed a hand across his jaw, tired. Give it a few days. It will calm down. Will it? She said, her voice breaking. Because right now, it feels like your silence is agreeing with them. Olu. His eyes flickered with guilt, but he said nothing. The moment stretched painfully. That night, she packed a small bag. The folded contract still sat on her desk, the inked signatures like a bruise on the page. She stared at it for a long time before sliding it into an envelope and leaving it on his study table. The next morning, Ethan found the envelope with her note. Thank you for giving me a place to belong, even for a little while. But I cannot be part of something built on misunderstanding and pain. Please tell Liam goodbye for me. For the first time in years, the house was silent again. Maria said nothing as she cleared the untouched breakfast. Liam wandered the halls, calling for Olivia, confused and upset. Ethan tried to explain, but the boy's eyes filled with tears. You said she was family, Liam whispered. Ethan turned away, his throat tightening. He had built his life around control, logic, and precision, but nothing about losing her made sense. He saw the newspapers piled on his desk, the cruel headlines, and felt the sharp sting of his own cowardice. He had let her walk away instead of fighting for the truth. Days turned into a blur of meetings and restless nights. Every time he passed the art studio, he felt her presence, the faint smell of paint, the sunlight on the unfinished canvas. Finally, one evening, Maria handed him a small drawing Liam had made. It showed 3 stick figures again. This time, one of them crossed out with a blue crayon. She is gone now. Liam had written at the bottom. Ethan held the paper until his hands trembled. Something inside him cracked open. The next morning, he called his assistant. Set a press conference for tomorrow, he said firmly. No scripts, no questions filtered. I am going to tell them the truth. The assistant hesitated. Sir, that could damage your image. Ethan's voice was quiet but certain. Then let it. There is nothing left worth protecting if the truth stays hidden. As he hung up, his eyes drifted toward the river outside. Somewhere out there, Olivia was alone, believing she had been nothing more than a performance. He whispered to the empty room, I am done pretending. And for the first time, he meant it. The following afternoon, the entire city turned its attention to Coltech headquarters. Cameras lined the marble steps, microphones pointed toward the glass doors, waiting for the man who had remained silent through the scandal. When Ethan finally stepped out, wearing a charcoal gray suit and no tie, the crowd went still. He walked to the podium slowly, a stack of prepared notes in his hand, though he never looked at them. His voice was calm, but carried through every corner of the square. Good afternoon. For days, there has been speculation about the woman seen with me. Her name is Olivia Ray. You have called her many things, but none of them are true. The murmurs rippled through the reporters. Ethan continued, his gaze steady. The truth is, I am the one who pretended. I asked her to help me navigate a world I had forgotten how to live in. I needed someone to remind me that kindness still exists, that my son could laugh again, that I could be more than a man behind numbers and walls. She did not deceive me. I deceived myself, thinking feelings could be managed like business. Flashes exploded around him, but he did not flinch. Olivia never asked for money, attention, or power. She only asked to be treated with respect. I failed her, and I am deeply sorry. He paused, his throat tightening. This will cost me, but some things are worth losing if it means standing up for what is right. So let this be clear. The only mistake she made was believing someone like me could be honest from the start. Alibi. He stepped back from the podium and walked away, ignoring the shouts of reporters. Inside the building, his board of directors waited with worried faces. That was risky, one of them said. Ethan removed his suit jacket. It was honest, he replied simply. And that is something this company has not seen in a while. That evening, the press conference replayed across every network. Olivia watched it from the small art studio she had rented downtown. Her eyes filled with tears as she heard his voice echo through the television speakers. He had not just defended her, he had exposed his own heart to the world. The next day, a knock came at her door. When she opened it, Liam was standing there, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. Behind him stood Ethan. The boy looked up, smiling nervously. Dad said flowers help when people are sad. Olivia knelt, her voice trembling. They do, sweetheart. Thank you. Ethan stepped forward, his eyes soft. I did not come here to ask for forgiveness. I came to tell you that you do not owe me anything. But if there is even a small chance, I would like to start over. No contracts, no pretending. Just truth. For a long moment, she said nothing. The room smelled of paint and sunlight. Then she reached out, touching Liam's hair, her gaze drifting back to Ethan. You already started. The moment you told the world the truth, he smiled faintly. Then maybe this time, I will earn the right to stay. Oh. She nodded, her tears finally falling. Maybe we both will. Outside, the sound of the city faded beneath the quiet promise of something real. Ethan took her hand. And for the first time, there was no audience, no performance, only a man, a woman, and a boy standing in the fragile light of an honest beginning. A year later, the little art gallery on the corner of Madison Avenue gleamed with soft light and laughter. The walls were lined with paintings that told a story only Olivia could have created, images of rivers, sunlight, and three figures walking hand in hand. At the entrance, a small plaque read, "Family Again, a collection dedicated to second chances." Guests moved between the displays, sipping champagne and murmuring with admiration. But Olivia barely heard them. She stood near the center of the room, watching a familiar figure walk through the doors. Ethan entered, wearing a simple navy suit, his expression calm and full of quiet pride. Beside him, Liam carried a drawing in a silver frame. "Congratulations, Mom," Liam said with a grin that melted her heart. She laughed softly. "You promised not to call me that in public." Ethan smiled. "I think it is too late. He has already told everyone, you are the best painter in New York City." Her cheeks flushed. He might be a little biased. "Oh, I learned it from you," Liam said proudly, hugging her leg. The moment felt warm and complete. 1 year ago, this same boy had been shy and silent. Now he glowed with joy. Olivia looked at Ethan, seeing how much lighter he seemed, how the quiet sadness he once carried had finally lifted. After the guests began to leave, the three of them stood together beneath her favorite painting, a sunrise over the Hudson River, finished in the very studio where her heart had first begun to change. The golden light of dusk filtered through the windows, wrapping them in a calm, almost sacred stillness. Ethan turned to her. "Do you remember what you said the first night we met?" She smiled. "I asked if you could pretend to be my date." He nodded slowly. "And I said yes. But I never told you the truth about what happened after that night." "What truth?" she asked gently. "That from the moment you took my hand, I stopped pretending." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold ring, simple but beautiful. Liam's eyes widened. "Dad, are you doing what I think you are doing?" Ethan laughed softly. "I think so, buddy." Then he looked back at Olivia. There were contracts before, and promises we were both afraid to make. But this one is simple. No signatures, no expiration dates, just a lifetime, if you will have me. Olivia's vision blurred with tears. For a long heartbeat, she could not speak. Then she whispered, "You do not need to ask. You already had my heart the night you chose truth over pride." He slipped the ring onto her finger as Liam cheered, clapping his hands. "Finally!" Laughter filled the room. Outside, the city hummed with distant life. But inside the gallery, everything was still a perfect moment suspended in time. Ethan pulled her close, his voice low and certain. "For once, there is nothing to fake, nothing to prove." Olivia smiled, leaning into him. No pretending, just real. And under the soft glow of her own paintings, with the man who had once been a stranger and the boy who had become her family, she knew her story had finally come full circle from a single desperate question on a rainy night to an answer that would last forever.